Hello, puppies and kittens, uh, welcome to another episode of Quran Lessons for the Infidel. And we are running a skeleton crew today, and I think this may be because of some pandemic-related sort of thing, as was being discussed earlier. But anyway, Bogey, at least we have you with us, and you have some notes to begin.
Yep, yep. We do have some notes to begin with.
Okay.
Um, and today's episode is going to tackle four surahs because they're all short and nice and not very hard on the ears. The first one of the list is Surah 76. The translations are here and there for the name, but it's basically the human being. I know you picked man, which is correct in terms of we reference human beings like that, anyways. And I like a take that insan is sounds like insane, which is probably a good approximation. Reference human being. Actually, in Arabic, the insan means the forgetful one, the
Okay.
one that forgets, right? So this is kind of a scorn name from Allah that human beings forget their duties towards Allah all the time and they need constant reminders, to keep praying and fearing Allah all the time. So hence the species name insan, which is interesting entry to this surah. As short as it is, this one has three abrogations, though, to boot:
So,
76, 8, 24, and 29. Yes, please.
so, right off the bat, it starts with another Quran miracle, as I was told, in 76:2.
Yeah, yeah. But let's
Um,
let's let's get there for a bit. And all three abrogations are abrogated by 9:5, and we shall see them as we get there. Uh, my first note is on 76:1. Uh, please read your notes. They are good stuff.
76.1. All right. So my
Yeah.
note was that translator Abdel Halim says that the waiting period starts properly after menstruation and before intercourse
No,
is
no, that's the
resumed.
other surah.
Am I doing the wrong? Oh, you're right. I'm too far down. Hold on. Okay. My note on translator Abdel Halim has a footnote here saying that the literal translation is, "Has there not come over man a period of time when he was not mentioned?" This refers to the time before the person was born. The point being that he was nothing. Then God created him, just as he will bring him to life again after judgment. That didn't make any sense to me either, so I checked with the IslamicStudies.info, and they listed multiple interpretations, starting with the choice between questioning whether this time happened, denying that this time happened, and acknowledging that, of course, this time happened, all of which might be applicable at once. My favorite of their interpretations was this: in the second sentence, what second sentence, I don't know. Hin min ad dahar. The word dahar implies the endless time, the beginning and end of which are unknown to man, and this is a particular period of time which might at some time have passed during this endless period, if it's not confusing yet. What is meant to be said is that this immensely long span of time, there has passed a long period when the human race was altogether non existent. Then a time came in when a species called man was created, and in the same period of time has passed on every person when a beginning was made to him to bring existence from nothingness.
Yes.
And finally, I
So,
said, well, we were not created, certainly not out of nothingness, but at least we can agree that there was a vast amount of time before we existed as a species.
right. So this is in reference, just to clarify this question. I get the translation. It is not talking about one human being. Because in regards to one human being, yes, there was a time that that human being did not exist, and then it was born, and then now that human being is existing, and now that we're talking about them. But this talks about humanity, and if we look back at the creation story, and we look back at how Adam was created according to the Quran, the jinn and the angels were already there. There was an entire universe there. Things were happening, books were being written, events were happening. Allah was presiding over everything. And then he goes and makes Adam from mud. And then he makes the jinn and the angels bow for him. And the time before that, there was no talk of Adam because Allah didn't create him from mud yet. Right?
So this is not the time when he was an embryo?
No. This we are talking about the original Islamic creation story, where Adam was created later. As a matter of fact, the animals were created before him, because then Adam was being shown the animals, and he was allowed to name them, right? To give them names. So all of these creatures were already there. Earth was there, and but humans weren't on Earth. So there was all these animals, there was all this jinn, there was all these angels who were required to bow for Adam once he was created and installed. So before that, there was no talk of Adam. So he say there was a time in the epoch where there was no talk of human beings at all, because there was none of them in existence.
But so this is not in any of my versions,
right? Because it wouldn't be.
If somebody's reading the Quran, how are they supposed to get all that from these 1.5 lines or 2 lines? I don't know.
They don't. They won't. You actually need to understand the whole theology, so that when you meet this text here, you say, oh, that's what he's actually talking about. He's talking about the time before Adam, and now he creates Adam, he makes the angels bow for him, and then Iblis doesn't bow because guy is made of mud, right? And then there was a time, he says, there was a time before Adam was even created. There was no talk about humanity at all, because the jinn and the angels and everybody else was happy doing their business of being, right? And then Allah ruins everything and creates Adam from mud, and then it's all a shit show after that, right?
From what I know, prior like just to give you some more detail on the pre-humanity phase, back then I was told that the earth was inhabited by jinn as the primary, as the dominant being, basically. But they came and they had civilization, but there came a time when jinns were at war with the angels or something like that, and during this war, Iblis, or Satan, was one of the generals who was fighting for God's side. And during this war, he climbed in ranks so much so that he climbed the ranks of the angels, although he was not an angel. But yeah, then after this war, God decided to make the humans. And when God told the angels that we are going to make an inheritor on earth, another one, the angels were like, why are you going to create something again that's just gonna shed blood and something like that? And God's reply is, I know what you don't know. But yeah.
Okay.
Right. So the second
I've heard that before, actually.
Oh.
Right. So the second verse, which I think you had a note on, right? You wanted to say something about it.
The second verse. Let me jump down to there. Okay, so that's where it's talking about we guided him to the right path, whether he was grateful or not. And I said that the right path being blind submission to superstition, credulity, to the point of committing tribal warfare over religious differences. That's the right.
Is it not the mixture of fluids?
Yes, this is the mixture of fluids. This is This is the where does the semen come from between the? This is that. So he created human beings from that fluid. Who test
Mixture of fluids. There you
right?
go. How could
Well,
they know?
no.
Yeah.
Not Fatun Amshajin. Yeah. Neptali, so Neptali Balwa is what happens to Job. Okay, everybody's familiar with Job's story.
Yeah.
And then we created him to test him, but we also made him see and hear things. And then we showed him the correct way. Either he was thankful for it or he was ungrateful, aka kafir. So he's not grateful for it. And then he goes on, and that we created a lot of problems for the unbelievers. Yada yada. Um, my next note is on verse 5. Verse 5 has a word in it, it's kafur, and I actually had to Google this up. It's camphor. Wikipedia has a good page on it. I posted the link. So
I didn't realize that was important. I mean, there was a footnote on copper, and I just went, oh, okay, well, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's camphor. you drink stuff with camphor in heaven because that apparently is good. Unless you're allergic to camphor, in which case it's not good.
Yeah, my translation says it's some sort of infusion, like something that is not alcoholic, and it has like a perfumed fragrance or something.
Right, it's camphor. It's aromatic chemical. It's used in industry today. The Wikipedia page is excellent. It has all this information in it. This is what camphor is. You use it as a herb. You use it to give incense to food items. You can eat it. Right.
It was probably very valuable back in Muhammad's time.
It was probably very valuable indeed. I mean, if it's a herb, it's a spice, and it would have been very valuable at that time. To have your drink infused with that is like really a rich thing to do, right? Today, you get your pop bottle from the superstore.
So hold on, I'm having a little bit of like cognitive dissonance about the verse 2. Well, I mean, what do you think? It says in here that humans are formed from a drop of mixed fluids. One of my versions goes a little bit further, that stretches and says that it comes from men and women, even though the original Arabic version doesn't mention men and women. But in earlier surahs, it was said that man was created from a drop of water and from a dangling thing. I forgot what was the other one. So it's saying all these different things. Do you think it's like a contradiction, or are these not abrogations?
No. The fluids and the fluid mixture is a given. Like it already said that before. The women part is merely being a fertile ground for the man's seed. There is no notion of genetic contribution from the female side in Islam. That they don't know about.
I was about to ask you about that.
Yeah, there is no sign of this. These fluids come from the man, right? So it's not. This is not like, oh yeah, you see, it is not. It's actually the woman is just a fertile ground. That's it, right? And we will see more signs of it in the next surah we're going to tackle. Verse 7, verse 8. 7, 8.
They give food to the poor, the orphan, and the captive, though they love it themselves.
Right.
That is the
18
second half of something.
Yeah, this is actually abrogated by 9.5. So they only need to give the only if the unbelievers repented and believed, paid the Islamic taxes, then you can do all the fooding stuff. Not before that. Here at this verse, everyone could do it, even the non-believers. So this verse is being limited and cut down in effect by 9.5.
That was one of my observations about the Quran. That it keeps saying that give to the poor and the orphans and the weary travelers, and that sounds like good advice,
Only
right?
if they are believers.
I guess 9.5 gets more explanation about that.
Right. All the charity is limited to the believers. Right. All the charity is limited to the believers, is limited to those unbelievers who signed a treaty with the Muslims. Then you can be charitable towards them. But other than that, it's the sword. Right. 76, 18, and 19. He could have used any words, even non existent ones. The effect would have been exactly the same. If you want to read the verses, then
17 and 18?
yes, 17,
Okay,
18
and they
and
will be given
18 and 19, sorry.
18 and 19. From a spring called Salsabil,
Yeah.
everlasting youths will attend them. If you could see them, you would think that they were scattered pearls.
Yeah. Like he could have used Salsabil or any other name. This is a spring in heaven. Nobody can point to the map and say, here it is.
Oh, so this is like the river Styx then.
Yes, and it's going to be a custom kind of mizaja. So here there is in 17 it says they are being given a cup of drink that is mixed with zanjabil, and nobody knows what zanjabil is. So camphor was easy. This one you can't even Google it.
So this is not an adjective. I had a different conflicting interpretation of salsabil.
Yeah, no, it is supposed to be something added to the drink that makes it better. But no one knows what it is. Right? The first drink was added, had camphor in it. This one has something else. And there are other places where...
and is it this or something else like 25 or 624?
25 or 624. Yeah, it's different. It's just going on like, hey, we're gonna mix it with zanjabil. What's zanjabil? Nobody knows, right? So this is my comment: is they could have used any words, even imaginary ones, and it would be exactly the same in meaning. It wouldn't have mattered because they're just making words up at this point.
I read online that Zaljabil means ginger in Persian, but yeah, I don't know.
Maybe it does. I don't know Persian, but then why is it a Persian word doing in here?
So everybody here right now amongst us has a different translation of this.
Right. Now, it could have happened backwards, the other way. Persians didn't know ginger. They got this word. They figured it must be this new herb. We're going to call it zanjabil. Right. Language is weird this way. They pick up words and they add meanings to them, right? They hear a word somewhere. It's mixed with a drink. This will mix with the drink. Let's call it that and whatever. Now we have a name for it. 76:19. Please read.
Didn't I just read that one?
No, 19 you didn't. Oh, yeah, you did. Sorry, you did. Okay. Actually, the translation is still crooked, but you got it right.
I'm just reading what Abdel Halim put down, but I'm confused because these are the waiters, right? But they're children. They're perpetually children. They're
Yeah, but
created
they're
just to
also,
be servants.
yes,
And if you were to look at them, you would think they were scattered pearls. What the hell's that mean?
because they're white.
They were white.
They were white kids. Okay.
Yeah, my interpretation that is that they were white or Caucasian or something.
Yeah.
Like
So
very fair skin.
the ever young boys that look like scattered pearls, as in white, are attending to their needs. And يطوف عليهم, they attend to every needs. They are waiting on them. Right. So yeah, that would be a more accurate mental picture.
Okay.
Okay. يطوف عليهم. So they are like servants with drinks and whatever they have, and they just run around the guests and make sure everyone gets his cup filled and his plate replenished every time it looks like empty, right?
And they also play that funky music.
Probably, I wasn't there. 7624 is my next note.
24. Okay, so await your Lord's judgment with patience. Do not yield to any of these sinners or disbelievers.
Yes, this is another abrogated verse. It's by 9:5. So the patience and the waiting is over. You can have at them with 9:5, right? So you don't have to wait for them, right? Because this verse says it starts off فَأَصْبُرَ لِحِكْمِ رَبِّكَ. So wait until Allah judges them. Well, 9:5 abrogate that part. You don't have to wait. You be the judge, and you judge them with that sharp thing in your hand. Okay, 7627 is my next note, unless somebody...
These people love the fleeting life. They put aside all thoughts of a heavy day.
Yes. Even with the translation, this is Bullock's. It's just not heavy day. Yeah, whatever.
Isn't it the Judgment Day?
Yeah, it is. He means the Judgment Day. Yes. 20...
And again, there would be no way that that Anton or I would guess that that's what they're talking about.
Yeah, that's why I'm going like, we bring it up, we talk it. Yes, it's Judgment Day he's talking about. He's talking about the big old Judgment Day. All right, 29.
Hold on. In 28,
28.
I have a comment. I think this is a comment on Aaron's notes, and unless I'm mistaken. Well, the whole gist of this is repeated in different forms in previous surahs. Is this comment by Allah that I don't need you, I can replace you anytime comment.
That's the old dad joke that you say to your kids, that I brought you into this world, I'll take you out and make another one look just like you.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and the thing is, nowadays, the majority of the world does not follow Islam, so he didn't replace us, did he?
It's actually a little bit more wider than that. It's not just replacing the you with another one like you that believes. It is saying those unbelievers can be removed from their lands and properties and replaced by believing people.
Right, but that's not the case nowadays. I mean,
well, that was the case every day until nowadays.
He had several thousand years to replace all the people in the world that didn't believe Islam. And
yeah, well, they didn't.
By now, all the world would be Islamic, but that doesn't seem like it's the case.
No, it certainly doesn't.
You're looking for too much consistency. I mean, and it should have been a clue by now that you're not going to get that here.
If anything, The Muslim God did not expect the world to last for this long, because every time Muhammad was asked about how long the world will last, he shows two fingers and says the distance between my time and the end of the world is the distance between both my fingers. So yeah, definitely did not expect it to last 1,000 years after Muhammad.
No,
Yeah,
now,
and it's like at that point they did have a metric for measuring time, right? So I mean, he could have given an answer that made sense.
yes, yes, they certainly knew the calendar. They certainly knew the years. Uh, Definitely was a part of their lives. We know Muhammad was a trader, and he would trade to the north, and then he would go to the south after that, doing his trade route every year. They literally timed it by the season of the year. So this they knew that. It's not like they didn't.
And there are actually many hadiths where Muhammad did give a timing, a rough timing at least, but none of them came through true. So now all those hadiths are ignored.
Of course. Of course. So 29 is my next note is abrogated by 9:5. The admonishment is over. 9:5 says action time. And please read your notes.
This is a reminder: let whoever wishes take the way to his Lord. And then my note on that was: remember that in several of the earlier surahs, the Quran said that God chooses who will believe in Him and closes the ears and eyes of His truth, and all that just so He can punish us later. In other places, it points out that we have no free will of our own; that everything we do is because He chose for us to do that. And this verse is reinforcing that concept from another direction, saying that believers only believe because God makes them believe. So we really are just toys to Him, and He chooses who among us will play the villain, the victim, or the hero. And that's more in that's more a comment on verse 31, where it says, He admits whoever He will into His mercy, and He's prepared a painful torment for the disbelievers.
Yeah.
Verse 30, but you will only wish to do so if God wills.
Yes. Yeah, that's why it's important to say inshallah, right?
Yeah. So we will only believe if God wants us to believe. And
Yep.
God has already decided that I won't believe. He's closed my eyes and ears. So He's decided that He's going to punish me for being the bad guy. I am, yeah, in the box of toys, you pick out which one's going to be the hero and which one's going to be the villain. That was the choice He made.
Yep. And that brings us to the end of this surah.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, Bogey, but I think every single surah so far mentions hell. Like they are going to be tortured in hell, those disbelievers. Like
Yeah.
multiple times.
Yes.
Every surah, every sermon, every Islam class will mention that. It's what you hear every day.
Yeah, that's the only important message. It was right in the very beginning. Leave the Quran or else. That's how it opened.
Yeah, I think this one would have been the exception, but this last verse, it mentions it right there. He has prepared for them a painful punishment.
Yep.
I don't know to what extent this is true, but like a difference I see between Christians and Muslims is that Christians believe that as long as they believe in Jesus, they're safe. But Muslims, you'll see them living in a constant fear of hell as well. It's kind of interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think I brought this up last time that there was a Christian who was arguing with me that he's not going to Muslim hell. That you can be Christian and as long as you believe that Jesus is the Son of God, that Jesus is in effect God or a partner with God, and that God is going to forgive you for that and let you into Muslim heaven.
Only if you've a Christian who did not associate Jesus with being God, and only if that was before Muhammad came.
Yeah, because once Muhammad came, all the previous things are abrogated.
So
Disbanded.
just to be clear, if you believe that Jesus is the Son of God, that Jesus is a partner of God, that Jesus still exists at the right hand of the power and all of that, if you believe in the Trinity, which I think is explicitly forbidden by the Quran, then you're going to hell, right?
There is
Yeah,
no
I
bigger
think
sin.
it's the worst sin in Islam
It says it's unforgivable.
to assign
100%.
partners to God. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. In a way, it's even worse than not believing, although I don't
So,
think the difference is material.
so that Christian that you mentioned, Aaron, he has a lot of arguing to do with so many people.
I just think it's funny because this person, most Christians have the argument that you should they want to do the Pascal's wager, right? Why don't you believe just in case there's a hell? Well, that doesn't do you any good if the Quran is right, because then the Christians are all going to Muslim hell, and the Muslims are all going to Christian hell. And so he thinks he's impervious by being a Christian. He's met Pascal's wager, and he's going to be perfectly fine, but he's not.
Yep. And that's my notes on this surah, and we can move to the next one if there are no more comments.
Okay.
All right, Surah 65, the divorce. Right, this surah legislates bits and pieces of the Divorce Act as part of the legal system of the Quran.
Before we get into it too much further, I want to read a question that just came up.
Yes.
Is what's written in the Quran exclusive? This is from Trevor Wright. Is what's written in the Quran exclusive to a particular location or place? And is the words of the surahs correct or wrong in the theological dispute and interpretation? That's the second part of that question is going to be much broader, I think.
The Quran depicts itself as for everyone, everywhere, in all times. That's the point.
That's what it claims, but that's not what it demonstrates.
Well, it claims that this is a message for everyone, everywhere, in all times. It uses the word al-Arabin for it, which is all creation, right?
This God who created 11 jillion galaxies is unusually concerned with people from Mecca versus people from Medina.
Right. So in terms of that, the Quran, despite making the claim that it is for everyone, everywhere, in all the time, does not show a respectable amount of knowledge about the everywhere, the everyone, and all the time. And this is one of the actual poking, gaping holes in the Quran, that it says heavens and then just doesn't know anything about the heavens, right? So it makes all these vague claims that only demonstrate that whoever wrote this book, which is presumed to be Allah, by the way, these are the words dictated by Allah directly, does not know what he created.
I need to mention a couple of other comments that were put in here. Let's see. G Skeptic says Sanjabil means ginger in Somali as well, so it's not far-fetched. It's a Persian word because we have words borrowed from other languages, namely Arabic. So he's saying that Sanjabil is a cognate. And then Procyon also said charity is limited to believers. Is there any proof of this argument?
As far as I understood, the zakat, the obligatory charity that Muslims have to give every year, that is limited to Muslims, but you can give non-zakat charity to non-believers, as long as they are not using it for something that's not allowed in Islam, like alcohol.
But that's the excuse everywhere to deny charity, isn't it?
Yes.
Yep. All right, so we can move on to Surah 65.
Okay. Which verse are we starting?
We are starting with a bit of a comment here. Before we start, 65 has no abrogations, and this actually makes it worse. You would wish it had an abrogation, but it doesn't. This is one of the most damning surahs in the Quran. I hope it didn't find. I hope I didn't find this, but I did. And when I read it and looked at it and understood it, I felt sick. So that's a comment. Let's talk about divorce in Islam in general. Divorce, waiting period, the three types of divorce, the triple divorce, and I think there is a plenty to discuss here. Now, since we're kind of short on panel here, I'm going to wade into this. So, generally, the man divorces the woman in Islam. The woman has the right to divorce the man, but she has to go to a judge to have this divorce done. She can divorce her husband, right? She can say, well, he's fickle, he doesn't do his job, he's not here because he will live somewhere else. Whatever good reasons she can come up, and the judge says, yeah, okay, you're divorced now, you're free to go and marry someone else. So she can have divorce through a third party, which is the judge. The man, on the other hand, can have divorce single-handedly by his own volition. Now, in Islam, a man can say, I divorce you, or I divorce my wife, and she's divorced. He literally cannot come home without bringing her back from that divorce. So he can't practice husbandry with her without bringing her back from that divorce state, right? So, and it is unfortunately widely spread in the Islamic world. When somebody wants to swear a big one, he says, well, my wife is divorced if this and this is not the way I said. And then it turns out it's not the way that he said, so his wife is divorced. Now, but according to Islamic law, he can only do this 3 times, and then the divorce will become final, which means the wife cannot be called back again from the divorce state. She has to leave him forever, maybe marry someone else, and then that someone else needs to divorce her of her own volition, right? And then he can marry her again, because that would be a new marriage contract. Now, Dan would definitely say there is the muhallil, and this is kind of a practice thing, that there are people who go and marry these triple divorced women, live with them for a night or not even that, and then divorce them the next day. And then the guy can have his wife back again after 3 times divorcing her. So this is a thing, it happens, but this is the legal basis of it.
Somebody in the comments mentions that the wife is like a hostage who needs to negotiate for her freedom.
I don't think she gets to negotiate. If she disagrees with her husband can beat her into submission. So I don't know what kind of a negotiation is that going to look like.
Yeah, it's funny that somebody mentions that, because
Right.
in this very surah, one of these verses says that she shouldn't go outside and ransom herself. That's the word that my translation uses. Like when you try to drive her out, like you want to divorce her, but you want to you need to wait for the period to pass. So what you could do is like be hostile to her so that she has to leave, and it says you shouldn't do that.
Yes.
And it says so she would have to ransom herself outside.
Yeah. So the second part of the divorce, you divorce your wife once, you can call her back. So verse number 2 actually says, well, you better have some witnesses that are there to say, yes, I called my wife back from the divorce, right? You do it again, you can call her back again. You do it the 3rd time, the divorce is final. You can't call her back. She has to go marry someone else, right? Now, that being said, there's a widely spread practice that people would say, I divorced my wife 3 times, right? So they swear that in public. They say, my wife is divorced 3 times. Not like, my wife is divorced, my wife is divorced, my wife is divorced. No, they say, my wife is divorced 3 times, like this.
Back
Right?
in the 1970s, Steve Martin did a comedy skit where he's talking about some character he's created where in his ethnicity, in his home country, if you want to break with him, you say, I break with thee, I break with thee, I break with thee. You have to say it 3 times and then you throw dog poop on her shoes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So
what I'm hearing here.
yes, that's
Literally,
what it
without
is.
the
So when
dogs.
he says this is the triple talaq, and in a lot of Islamic countries, actually, they are turning around a little bit and say, no, 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 this should be invalid and illegal. You cannot triple divorce your wife in one sentence. You actually at least have to give her the respect of doing it 3 times, right? You can't just say, well, this is triple X and it's done, right?
And if you
No,
do it 3 times while looking into a mirror, you're going to die in 7 days.
exactly. So
So I
don't
had
don't sell Beetlejuice 3 times. It's bad.
I had a thought about this surah, like similar to a comment that I have brought before in a previous surah. I don't remember about the indoctrination of the children, because it mentions this period of waiting
Mhm.
about when she's pregnant. And I gotta be honest, I didn't understand a lot in my version. It was unfortunately lacking,
Mhm.
but
Are you
it's
reading it in English or is it Arabic to Spanish for you?
it's our
Spanish.
hold on, it's Arabic to Spanish,
Okay.
Yeah.
but there I'm using other English versions for cross reference, because sometimes they are not very clear, and it's not like there's one that's the best, because for this surah, for example, the Spanish version is very unclear, and I didn't quite understand, and the other ones are better. But for other surahs, it changes. The Spanish one is the good one, and the other ones are not very detailed.
Yeah, it actually depends between culture and culture a lot, how the
It does.
translations work. But if you look at the original Arabic, a picture becomes a little bit more clearer. I'm not saying that's better, but it does
So
become clearer.
so what's this whole thing about the when they are pregnant? Because before you go into that,
Okay, okay. So a pregnant divorcee, her waiting period is not 3 months,
it's
but the
until
wait
the end of the
it's
delivery.
until she somehow gets rid of the pregnancy, either through delivery or through abortion, right? So it's deliberately not specified as 9 months, deliberately not specified until birth, because that may not happen, right?
Yeah.
She might abort, and that's fine according to Islam. And this is one of the verses that is brought up, that this is fine to have an abortion in Islam because of this verse, and we will visit it when we get to it. I'm trying just to put this general cloud of explanation on top of this, because
So
once we get to read the details are going to be too nitty gritty to see the big picture.
so Bogi, why do you think this is the case? Do you think this is so they can keep the child? Like if the child was born from a
It
Muslim
is
father,
in
they can keep
Islam,
him?
the custody is to the father. Period.
So is that the reason for this waiting
Yeah.
period for the pregnant
No,
women in this
no,
case?
the reason for this is so that you do not inherit a child from another man by marrying their wife and they turn out to be pregnant. Okay, the whole reason of the waiting time is you want your property to be clear of the previous guy.
Right.
Okay,
I get that.
right,
However, if she is pregnant, you have to wait until she is no longer pregnant before you divorce her.
right,
Right. So
and
you
then
can keep the child
no, 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 you
if
divorce
it
her.
comes.
No, 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 you divorce her. She's out of your wedlock. She's still going to have the child. You will have the custody of that child. If she is going to breastfeed that child, you pay for that breastfeeding, because that was a business women did back in the day, right? So you have to pay her money for that breastfeeding. And then when she stops breastfeeding the child around, I don't know, 2 years later, the child then goes to your household and she does not get to keep the child.
Yeah. Okay. Let me rephrase it a little bit. The way I see this is that this child is a potential future Muslim, so you want to keep him.
Oh, yeah,
You,
he's definitely a future Muslim because childhood
you don't want to,
indoctrination under
right?
Islam is nearly 100%.
You don't want to just let him go, like divorce the woman when she's pregnant and
Yeah, she's
lose that
gone.
potential.
She's gone. She's no longer your wife once you divorced her, right? But the child will remain yours. She can have him while she's breastfeeding him. And if you don't want her to breastfeed the child, you can just hire a breastfeeder, a wet nurse, and pay the wet nurse the money. She just becomes a wet nurse to her own child for the period of time, right?
But that's only if you have problems with your wife and she
Well,
can't
you divorced
breastfeed
her.
you.
There should be some reason for that, not just divorced her by mistake. I mean, I'm not having high hopes here, but like if you divorce your wife, you assumption is there is a reason for that divorce. I'm not saying it's valid or it's good that you did, but the point is you divorced her. And now this is the situation. If this was her final third divorce, then you can't have her back. And she has to wait a year. And I guess the other guy has to wait until she finishes breastfeeding too before she can marry him. Right?
I'm going to bring up a couple other side things. One is with Zagros Askan. I'm sure I said that wrong. Asks Boogie, how do we know the order of revelation?
Oh, that is a given in an order of revelations page at the other end of the Quran.
You you
Generally,
can
it's
you can
published.
Google it. Order of
You
revelation.
can also Google it. It's an
Yeah, but that doesn't
agreement.
answer the question. How was that determined?
Well, it was determined by the early people who collected the Quran. They knew which verse came before which verse,
Okay.
and they jotted that information down. Like this book was not revealed at once. It was revealed over 27 years, I think, or 23 years. And
Yeah,
some
it's by
verses,
antiquity.
right. So they know which one, and they actually put it at the end of the Quran, saying that is the order we put the book together, but this is the revelation order, and it's got preserved. And you can actually Google it today, and the list is out there. It's not a hidden thing, it's not an unheard of thing.
All right. And then we have from G Skeptic, we have
Mhm.
a super chat for £5. Thank you very much. Says, when man wants to divorce his wife, he just utters talak
Yep,
thrice.
exactly.
I guess
Yeah,
that's thrice, and it's done, although it
yeah,
is not straightforward in practice.
right. So the legal scholars today would frown upon the triple talaq. They would say, yeah, you should not do that. That's bad. It's not okay. You owe her more than that, you know. Uh, and a lot of men divorce their wives just because they lose a card game or something. So it's kind of like, yeah, we need to do better than that, and they are trying to do better than that. So to bring you the honest and the fair, there is a movement in the Islamic world to make triple talaq illegal, not a practice thing. However, the three times talaq is final, and it is the way the surah described it. So that still stands, and it's not good. So we can go to 65-1.
And another super chat from Hawk Hernandez for $5. Thank you very much for that.
Um, so 65-1. If you divorce, then you have to do the waiting period. I mean, if you divorce once or twice, then you have to do the waiting period, right? If you divorce three times, then the other guy who's going to marry her have to do the waiting period, right? It just makes sense because now you can't bring your wife back from the divorce state the third time, right? So it will be explained. The waiting period will be explained later. In case of non-final divorce, you can still recall them. So don't throw them out of the house. So this is what it says. Do not immediately throw her out of the house for the first two divorces, except if they have committed sex outside of wedlock, aka being with some other guy, then you can throw them out of the house immediately. So yeah, but this will kind of contradict with the other verse that says if they commit this particular crime, they will be locked up in their houses forever until they're dead, which is kind of a contradiction. But this one says you can throw them out. So that's where I made the note back then that I think this might not necessarily mean the husband's house. This might mean a jailhouse for divorce and estranged women who are going to stay there until they die, because you can't throw them out here, right?
There's actually a story about one of Muhammad's wives. They had a special condition to where they cannot marry after Muhammad.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And this woman was getting old, and Muhammad wasn't liking her that much. I forgot her name, sadly.
Mm-hmm.
And she realized that Muhammad didn't like her too much anymore and was going to get a divorce. So she knew that if Muhammad did divorce her, she would not have any life after that because she cannot get married again.
Yes.
So she begged Muhammad. She told Muhammad, the night that you have, Muhammad spends the night in order for his wives. Like one night he'll be with Aisha, the next night he'll be with another wife. So she's like, take my night and give it to one of the other girls, but please don't divorce me. And Muhammad agreed to it. But, yeah.
Well, it's a good deal for him. I mean, whatever. Okay, 65:2 is an interesting verse. So we understand that once you divorce your woman, you will have to divorce them to their waiting period. And then you can bring them back if you want, in case you divorce them once or twice. And the second verse actually explains that. So when they finish their waiting term, you can keep them with kindness, or you can say, no, you can go. I don't want you, right? So she can go back to her parents' house or whatever else she can find a place to sit. And you should bring witnesses, fair witnesses, to witness these acts. So when you divorce your wife, you want to bring her back or send her away finally. You can divorce your wife with a single divorce. You don't have to triple divorce her, right? You can say she's divorced. You bring the witnesses. Yes, I said she's divorced. And then the wife packs up and leaves after her time period, after her waiting period is finished. And the witnesses will say, yeah, you divorced her one divorce and she's left and she's not coming back, and that's fine. We recognize that, and they understand. So they say bring the witnesses here so that there will be no mix-up after that, right? So this is verse number 2. And when verse number 3 is basically saying we will give you income and livelihood from where you don't expect, and if you depend on Allah, then He is going to help you out.
I want to make a super chat from Zagros Askan for $9.99. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. So we are getting to verse number 4, which is, I don't know if it's the worst verse in the Quran.
Well, let's find out. Let me read it. Okay,
yes, please. Yes, please.
If you are in doubt, the period of waiting will be 3 months for those women who have ceased menstruating, and for those who have not yet menstruated. The waiting period of those who are pregnant will be until they deliver their burden, and God makes things easy for those who are mindful of him. So you have to wait 3 months for those women who have ceased menstruating. And in 3 months, if you're waiting, well, then we're not talking about the period that she's having right now. You're talking about all the periods she will ever have. You're talking about menopause.
Yeah.
Menopause,
And then in context, we have to refer to those others who have not started menstruating. We're talking about divorcing your wives who have not yet ever menstruated.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the age when human females started menstruating? 18? 20?
15, 14, 15, as far as I last checked in the biology books.
It's I went and looked this up. The average is 12 to 15.
12. So, sometimes sooner. Sometimes it could be 10.
Yeah, I've seen a few examples of sooner, but
Yeah.
the average is 12 to 15. It can be. I mean, there's some girls maybe as early as 9, something like that.
Yes.
So for the women who menstruate 3 months, that's a given, right? For those who are menopausal, 3 months just to be sure, right? And for those who haven't menstruated yet, 3 months also, right? So let's assume that you are going to marry a wife of your relative who either divorced her or died or whatever, and his wife hasn't menstruated yet. So she's going to wait 3 months and she still hasn't menstruated yet, and now you're going to marry her too. Okay, it can't.
Yeah, there's a comment from G Skeptic says we've discussed Islamic divorce previously, and how some people get around marrying her again by paying someone else to marry and then divorce her, according to Diana. And the comment is, very creative.
Yes, that creativity still exists. That muhallil
It still happens.
Right, this happens. This is
The 4-hour marriages or 2-hour marriages.
They are known professional guys who do this business. Right, they don't do anything, right? They marry the woman, they look at her at night for 4 hours, and in the morning that she's divorced, and he gets paid. Of course,
as you do.
It should be illegal under the Quran, by the way, but it happens, and whatever, fine. So why are you divorcing your wife so much?
What I hear the most is that those were other times, and marrying someone so young was, it was different morality and stuff like this.
Right. Now, this is part of Sharia law. The countries that have it have a raging debate about lowering the age of marriage for girls to 0. And a lot of countries have it at 0, and those who don't are having raging debates in the courts and in the forums that this is un-Islamic, it needs to be lower, right? Make no mistake about it. This is the thing that people think is right to do. Delusion is powerful, and unfortunately extremely harmful as well.
And if it was just a law for that time, why was Muhammad a guide for all of mankind until the end of times?
Right. Now, and this is bad, because if it was only based on the fact that Muhammad did it, right, and Muslims are supposed to mimic Muhammad in everything, right, then that would be bad, but at least you could talk out of it and say, well, maybe you shouldn't because it was a thing at his time and you don't do it now, yada, yada, yada. So these arguments belong to the hadith realm of the argument. But when you find a Quranic verse like this, then there is no more argument. You can't argue against that theologically correctly. The only way is to leave the theology behind. Say, okay, this belonged to the Iron Age, and now we're in the Info Age. Please don't follow this, any of it.
Yeah, it's the same case as with slavery. It's indefensible.
It's indefensible, and this is indefensible too. And because it's codified in this book the way it is, it's very hard to get rid of.
Yeah, you cannot just remove the whole surah.
No, you can't. I mean, I bring the example of the fatwa that came out based on a called weak hadith, right? That you can eat your wife in case of
Oh
right,
yes, that one.
right.
Never
And
heard of it, to be honest.
it was a big row. It was like, how, what the heck? And then the Azhar professors came out and said, no, 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 this hadith is weak. You should not, this fatwa is not good. This hadith is weak. You should not have made the fatwa with that. The problem is they can do it with the hadith. And because there is no verse in the Quran that says you can eat your wife if you're too hungry, then they get away with that, right? And then nobody eats their wives, thankfully, because the fatwa was overturned, right? But if somebody said, I want this, then they can't overturn it. Not even the Azhar people can overturn it because they say, well, this is 65-4 here, and what are we going to do? Right? So it's a dark, dark verse. I really felt sick when I read it the first time around, and then I take another shot at it, and every time I brought it up in conversation, the people were either stunned that it is in there, or they just didn't believe that it was in there, and they open the book and they look
and
at
removing it is heresy. You cutting it with scissors, that would be
it.
heresy.
Even ignoring it is heresy.
Yeah.
So how do you keep a book like this and say we gotta be proper Muslims and say, well, accept this one? Because that is the definition of heresy, though.
That is the reason why I started reading the Quran, because of examples like this. You mentioned that there's people that don't even know that it's there, or deny that it's
Right.
there.
I had a conversation with an ex-Muslim lady in a pub. We were having some drinks. It was loud. We were shouting over each other. And I brought this verse up, and she was going like, no, it's not in the Quran, like, underage marriage and stuff like this. And I said, it's not in the Quran, it's just hadith, and we can work around it, right? And I said, you would be right, but read 65-4.
Yeah,
And she fires up her phone, she looks it up, and she says, holy shit, I didn't.
That was me once upon a time saying it doesn't say that. That was me.
It's in there. It's on my
screen. I had to start reading it.
Right.
I'm glad I got into reading this too, because I would have been like so many other people saying that the 72 virgins thing, which I don't even know where that came from, but it's not in there. So it's important to know it's not in there too.
Yeah, that's one of those examples of the opposite.
Yeah,
it's something that's just not there.
Oh, but yeah, 72 is not there, but there's infinite virgins.
It's legions.
There is legions in there, so there's an argument of whether it's a Roman legion or what the legion exactly means. And I think that's an interpolation of legion into 72 somehow. I don't know. Only Allah knows.
Wasn't it Surah 72 that it mentions for what one of the surahs that mentions it? And I think this came up in a previous.
Yeah, and I think we haven't gotten to that surah yet.
No, but you did mention something along those lines in the previous episode. It was verse 72.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
It was talking about.
So we got another comment from Zagros Azkan. It says in Turkey they call the Quran Karim. Yes. Do you know what Karim is?
Generally, the Quran is referenced to as the Quran al-Karim, which means the generous Quran, right? That's how they call it in Arabic, and obviously the Turks just took the Arabic and put it in Turkish letter, and that's it. They're pretty close to the original name, right? In English translation, it will look like the Holy Quran, right? On the cover. It's a translation. That's fine. All righty. So 65.6 is discussing the divorced pregnant woman. So a pregnant divorced woman may keep the newborn for breastfeeding purposes, and the father has to pay her for the breastfeeding, which used to be a business back then, to breastfeed other people's children for money. So the Quran says yes, but if she's going to breastfeed him, then you have to pay her too, right? If you opt to take the newborn from her and give it to another woman who practices the breastfeeding business, then that's the case, and that's, you did that, right? But if she decides that she's going to breastfeed the newborn, then you have to pay her the fees for breastfeeding, just like daycare, right? You have to
And
pay
then
for
she never sees the kid again.
She never sees the kid after finishing breastfeeding, yes, because the custody is for the husband. Child custody is for the father. What are you talking about? When you implement
I don't know, human compassion.
Yeah, no, that's not happening. Allah's will, man. When you implement Sharia law in a family issues, between brackets only, this is what you are implementing and empowering. It's your choice. It's always yours. But when somebody wants family law, Islamic family law implemented, this is one of the items they want implemented. And of course, the other items we just discussed about divorce. 65.7 is my next note.
And let the wealthy man spend according to his wealth, but let him whose provision is restricted spend according to what God has given him. God does not burden any soul with more than he has given it. After hardship, God will bring ease.
What
Yeah.
about the mother though then?
Oh, she's screwed. um, 65.7, if you read it a little bit sideways, just a very little bit sideways, is a get out of alimony money.
Ah,
You don't have to pay that much if you don't have enough to pay. And if you're going to pay for the breastfeeding, you may pay almost nothing because you say you're poor, right? So this is the getaway from paying her any money after that. I have
Yeah,
no more.
who's to
Yeah.
say if you are or not capable to pay?
I think there is a good measure in Islam, and one of the good measures is: are you gonna? Do you make enough money? They call the nisab, right? Do you make enough money to start paying the zakat? Because there's a minimum amount of income beyond which you need to pay the zakat, which is the Islamic tax, which is the quarter of a tenth, right? So if you are paying that, then you probably are wealthy enough to pay a proper alimony too, right? Um, this is generally an understanding of this. If you don't get to pay zakat because you don't make enough money to even pay that, then you're probably too poor to pay this either, right? It's just like when you have a lower limit on taxation. If you make less money than that, then you're just not paying any taxes.
it's hard for me to imagine the mindset where you're trained that if it's in this book, then no matter what problems there are, they obviously are with it, this is still right and just and divine wisdom.
It is right and just and divine wisdom. If you don't think it, I don't want to contemplate the consequences, man. It's too bad. Like, the point is, if you don't believe every item in this book, you're going to hell. One reason or another. You're either a total infidel, or you're a mushrik. You're worshiping other gods with this one, or you're a heretic because you're ignoring a bunch of verses here and there.
Mhm.
So what's the out here? Right? There is no out. Yeah, that's my last comment on 65, by the way.
There's one more
Hmm.
at 65:12. That this is the last verse. This is a miracle of the Quran, right?
It is God who created 7 heavens and a similar number of earths. His command descends throughout them, so you should realize that he has power over all things and that his knowledge encompasses everything. His knowledge
Right.
encompasses everything because he's built 7 heavens at different
And
levels into the firmament that is the solid crystal dome over the flat disk earth. That's amazing wisdom and knowledge he has.
yeah, setting aside the dome, it says 7 Earths as well. And this, I'm bringing to you. This comes from Montada Islamic Foundation. I'm not familiar with this one. I think it's from Spain, but it says that this indicates a confirmed scientific miracle by the Quran and Hadiths. I don't know which ones, because it describes the layers of the Earth, like the inner nucleus and the magma and all of that. And there are 7,
Yeah, I figured that's what it had to
so to
be.
speak.
I figured that's what it had to be. That if it's talking about when it says 7 heavens, it's really talking about 1 heaven and 7 levels. So there had to be like that for the Earth too, because if you had different Earths, then they would have different domes over those discs, and each one would have their own heaven in them, and so God would have 7 houses in the top of each of those skies.
Yeah, well, Montada Islamic Foundation says it's the layers of the Earth, the layers of the core.
So geologically, they limited themselves to 7 strata inside the layer cake Earth.
Mhm.
Congratulations. Does that make it a miracle now?
Well, there's a thing. It depends on like the layers are almost arbitrary. So
Right.
it
I
could be
can
7.
name
It
anything
could
a
be
layer.
6. It
I
could be 8.
I can say the crust, the mantle, the whatever else that comes after it, and then the area just before the core, and then the core, and I'm still at 5. So they're wrong.
Yeah, but they divide the lithosphere and the troposphere, where the water is, and they divide the mantle. By they, I mean the Montada Islamic Foundation into 3 instead of 2, and that happens in certain geography books,
Yeah,
textbooks. It could divide it into 3 instead of 2.
that's
Would you send me
100% okay.
a link to that, or not a link, but like a copy, a little bit of that text, so that I can reference that and amend what I've already
Sure,
written? Thank you.
sure. It's
Yeah.
In email.
it's in Spanish.
Well, if you can
So
give me the name of the organization that you're quoting from, because
It is interesting.
yeah, I'm not familiar with this one, but it sounds official. It might be from Spain. It's Montada Islamic Foundation.
Mhm.
I can send you a screenshot
Thank
and
you.
the
Thank you.
it
Appreciate
says
it.
so here in the verse.
So we did find a miracle. What do you know?
Yep.
All righty. Surah 98. Al-Bayyinah, the clear evidence. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. When
I would dispute.
Yes, I'm going like, okay.
when I was first reading this, I was like, oh, okay, finally, the proof finally comes.
Yeah. Let's talk about it for a bit. I have no notes on this one. I literally have no comment at all. This is basically the usual stuff. Take the claim as evidence, stuff it in the book is holy, go to hell if you don't believe it, and get to heaven if you submit to the stuff that's in there. the end, or did I miss something?
Nope.
Yeah, it's
Because
just the claim again. The claim
this,
is the proof.
right, this surah does not need to exist. It delivers no extra message at all.
I have one note on verse 5, however.
Yes.
Hold on, let me locate it. It says, even though they were only commanded to worship Allah alone with sincere devotion to Him, in all uprightness, establish prayer. That is the upright way. And my comment is, well, hold on. They could do all that because, okay, I forgot to mention, this is the second half of a whole sentence because, the Quran likes to divide a paragraph into two. So this doesn't make a lot of sense by itself. It's verse 4 and 5. It's talking about the people of the book. Yeah, well, the people who are not Muslim, right? And it says if they do all that is the upright way. That's the correct religion, is one of my versions says, and they could do all that, but if they don't trust Muhammad, they would still be put through the chopping block, right?
They will, but I think the translation you're reading is not good enough. And that's why you're reading it, and I get you. So the people of the book did not go astray. They only went astray after we sent them the clear evidence. And we only ordered them to only worship Allah and faithfully commit the religion to Him. Straight, that's the straight and narrow way, and to do the prayers and to pray the zakah and to pay the zakat, and that's how you do religion properly. So he said they did not go astray until he gave them the evidence.
Yeah, well, I probably wasn't very clear. This verse says that all that is expected from them is to pay the zakat,
Right. We only told them to
practice
do this. Right.
the salah, and
Bogey, try not to talk other people, please.
Yeah.
and believe in Allah, and that is it. But that's not it. There's a lot more that you still need to do. Otherwise, you'd be persecuted, right?
Right. You still need to beat your wife.
Right. What if I do all of that, but I just don't trust Muhammad, or I don't believe in Judgment Day?
No.
That's
Your
a sin.
heart,
No,
your
that's a
heart
big
is
no.
not. Yeah. You have to believe it. You have to sincerely hold the belief.
God
We
does
got
not
a
mean
comment from G Skeptic says all believers deny things that are in their books. Muslims convince themselves to the extent that they actually believe their own lie. It's either that or that's not what it means. And I frequently get this with Christians too. When I say that the Bible says this, and they say no, that's not what it says, and I show them, and they say, well, that's not what it means.
Okay.
Yeah, that was me once upon a time. Even though I never was a believer.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the Quran sometimes is very clear.
Yeah.
Sometimes
And that is unfortunate.
it's such a clear book that
Yes.
that this show is necessary.
Yeah, but the very first verse that we started with was very, very vague and leaving a lot of stuff out of the like we wouldn't know, other than me.
Yep.
there were wars that were fought and tons of people that died just because of disagreements people had about their understanding of the Quran within the same country
Yep.
in the past.
Okay, we can move to Surah 59, I guess.
All right. Somebody say something. I'm
The
scrolling down.
15, yeah, so Surah 59 has an interesting name, Al Hashr, right? So the cramming together the coming together, the cramming together. This is an end day paradigm that all the people will be gathered together, the dead will become alive, and they will all be compressed and squeezed into the narrowest possible place. And then they will face the judgment, and then they will go to heaven or hell, depending on what they did. And all that
My
is going to happen in this extremely crowded condition.
my version says the exile. Do you think that's a
No,
bad
yeah,
translation?
that's not an okay translation at all. Yeah. So it's kind of like this is what the name means. There is this item in the end day where the dead have become alive again, and now they are going to face judgment, but they are going to be crammed together in a small place. And it would be hot, and it would be dusty, and it would be unpleasant, and yeah, it's just the terrible thing. So, anyways, it's not like you can hang around and pull a number and wait for your turn. No, you have to get crammed together. Alrighty, so this one is also has no abrogation. Just saying.
So
One, one or two.
the one that said that you can marry children and divorce children was not abrogated. There was no contest on that.
No, not a single app.
There
Yeah,
was never a later author that said, "Well, no, let's." Well, I can't say later author because all of this was dictated by God. Yeah, and so what's wrong with this one then that it isn't abrogated? Because the only things that are not abrogated are the ones that are already horrible.
yeah. Well, this is to make it more tantalizing and heighten the tension. Please read your notes about one and two. Good stuff.
About 22,
No, one and two. 59
1 and 2.
verses 1 and 2.
Okay. All right, so my note is the Quran is clearly not aimed at global humanity for all time, but only for one little desert community at one moment in history. And the obviously human authors of the Quran did not include illustrative details because they expected all future readers to already be familiar with the folklore and history of that time. Fortunately, a translator, Abdel Halim, realized this failing and partially compensated for it by explaining that this passage refers to the Jewish cult Banu al-Nadir, who originally agreed with the Prophet that they would fight neither for nor against him, yet after the Meccan defeat of the Muslims at the Battle of Uhud, made an alliance with the Meccans. Halim goes on to setting the stage, but the only part that matters here is that Banu al-Nadir had repeatedly broken their agreements.
Yes. So if you are non-Muslim per se, but you have an agreement with the Muslims that you're not going to fight against them, and you're not going to fight with them either because you're a pacifist or something, then they will tolerate you. That's fine. They're okay with that. But if you kind of get around it and say, well, okay, we're going to send some money to the unbelievers' army and whatnot, then they get in trouble. And this surah partly described this situation. I don't have a whole lot of notes until 59:21.
Yeah, hold on. I want to bring my interpretation
Yes,
of these two first verses
yes.
because this is yet another example of things that are not explained. You have to know the folklore behind it. So I
Yes.
looked it up, and in the second verse, I didn't understand what it was saying about the Jews of Banu Nadir. This is the tribe that plotted against them during Uhud, and it says that they destroyed their homes by removing the pieces of the house. At first, I didn't understand this. I was thinking like they went crazy, or Allah made them go crazy, or something like that. But upon further investigation, it turns out that well, they were exiled after this transgression against the Muslims, and what they did is removing the support beams of their houses and buildings so that the Muslims would not be able to occupy their buildings or otherwise benefit from them when they were gone. Is this correct? So
Maybe
that's
you ought
what
to
they
answer
did.
that one. Bogey?
I don't go either way with that. This is probably more folklore added to it. They
Yeah,
could have.
that's the whole. When it says that they make their houses crumble, or
Yes,
I don't know
well,
how.
there is this يخربون بيوتهم بأيديهم, so they ruin their own homes with their own
Yeah.
hands. So that would be correct there. So maybe that happened, right?
So they didn't intentionally,
No, they
to
did.
ruin the buildings.
Yes, they sabotaged their own buildings when they were going to be chased out of it. So this is being mentioned in verse 2.
Oh well, there's another comment I almost missed on verse 5.
Yes.
It's still talking about this. I guess they were sieging the Jews, like they were going after them, and to access some fortification, they had to cut down palm trees, right? So there was a dispute on whether or not to cut down the palm trees, because I think Mohammed said not to do it, but they did it anyways. And let me read you the whole comment.
Even if you cut down the trees or left them standing on their stems, you are doing that with Allah's permission.
Right. So here's the thing.
So that to humiliate the disobedient and the defiant. So to humiliate you, let you know that whatever you destroyed or cut down or left standing, you did it with my will.
Right, because it's there in this verse. But
So when God, we don't believe in God unless God wills it, right?
Yeah.
So the Jews believe in a different version of God, again, because God wills it.
But still Allah controls their deeds.
So Allah is lying to them. He's lying to the Jews on purpose.
Well, he's telling them that whatever you did, you thought you did it yourself, but I was the actual
Well, exactly.
master. I was the puppeteer.
So I mean, the old line, "The devil made me do it." No, Allah made me do it.
Allah
whatever
made
the crime is.
Yeah, yeah. It's probably a better excuse.
About the second half of this verse, I have a weird interpretation. Let me know if I got it right. The Jews will offer a sort of a rebuttal, a smart-ass rebuttal, and said that in Islam, you're not supposed to cut down trees or, otherwise damage the crops and the plant life during wartime. And this ayah conveniently came down.
Which one?
You've noticed
5.
that trend too. How some ayahs come down.
Yeah, very conveniently. The number 5, when it says it's because Allah gave you permission.
Yeah. You could do it because I wanted you to.
Otherwise, they would have been right. You weren't
They would
supposed to
have
cut
been
down
right.
the palm trees.
Yeah, but he's saying it here, like you whether you left it standing or cut it down, you did it with the permission of Allah, just to humiliate you.
Very convenient.
Yeah, I'm just doing it from spite. When you did it, you thought you did it. No, I let you do it just to spite you. Right. Any questions before 21? Okay, let's go on to 21 then.
If we had sent this Quran down to a mountain, you, prophet, would have seen it humbled and split apart in its awe of God. We offer people such illustrations so that they may reflect.
That's a very nice illustration, though. You have to give it that.
Yeah.
Interesting. So
mountains can read.
Also, this Quran was sent onto a mountain. The mountain would crack and crumble. Great. It looks like a great way to quarry rocks and minerals, though. New miracle. New miracle. Just drop the Quran on a mountain. You already read your note. That's a good way to open strip a whole mountain and turn it into rocks.
Well, like Mubarak has said before, every according to Islam, everything is sentient. So they can
Right.
read, they can speak for you, they can chat back.
Rocks are Muslims.
Yep. Frogs are moving.
They
It's true.
have to be, otherwise they end up in hell and it's gonna look bad. You know, all those rocks sitting there on
What's
the
funny
side,
is,
they're like, okay,
yeah,
we're
sorry.
fine.
What's funny is even your fingers are Muslim. It's just your mind that's not Muslim, because your fingers, your hand, every part of your body will testify against you.
Uh-huh.
No, I
Okay.
refuse.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's psychotic and crazy. Okay, 59, 22, 24. 11 out of the 99 names of Allah are hiding in there. Please read your comments.
You said on verse 24?
Yeah, 22 and 24.
Okay. 20, but not 23?
Well, from 22 to 24.
Okay. So he is God. There is no other God than him. It is he who knows what is hidden as well as what is in the open. He is the Lord of mercy, the giver of mercy. He is God. There is no God other than him, the controller, the Holy One, source of peace, granter of security, guardian over all, the Almighty, the compeller, the truly great. God is far above anything they consider to be his partner. He is God, the creator, the originator, the shaper. The best names belong to him. Everything in the heavens and earth glorifies him. He is the Almighty, the wise.
Yes.
And my note
What's
was he's also the imaginary.
Yes. That is a sign of the end of days. You found Allah's 100th name. Congratulations. You brought it. You brought it. um, yeah, it's an interesting couple of verses here. لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون. Oh, okay. هو الذي الخالق الباري المصور, and he's got all these nice names. So 11 of the 99 are sitting in two verses here. That's a pretty high percentage, right? There is a song, a verse, a religious one that mentions the 99 names of Allah in a song. You can dig it up. Probably you find it in YouTube. And there
You
are
know it by
99. There are 99 names mentioned in the Quran, and one of the stipulations of the end of days is that the 100th name will be revealed. Somebody's going to find it out, and I think you might just have done so.
Oh, well, let's hope. Okay. I was a little surprised that Diana didn't make it. Was concerned that she didn't. She said that again, in her country there are issues. Seems like everything is collapsing over there.
Yes.
All right, and can make a future trip. She was worried that she wouldn't be able to. One of the things that keeps going on where she is power keeps going out, like apparently nationwide. So.
Yeah,
But
I
anyway.
have seen videos of Lebanon. There's some stuff going on. And I also was worried.
Yeah. All right. So we don't have a lot of these left. There are 6 more Quran lessons to go before we are done with this book. And just give everybody a heads up. All right. If anybody want to make a final comment, otherwise we'll go ahead and close it out here.
We got a super sticker.
We do. Where?
It's in the bottom of the list.
Oh yeah, Robert Lawrence, $10. Thank you very much for that. And no message attached, so I can't read it. So, all right. Well, thank everybody again, and we will. I guess we will convene again in 2 weeks' time.
I have a question
What's that?
for you, Aaron. I am going to attempt to draw Muhammad, and I was going to ask you if I could show it on the last episode, my drawing, or if you prefer not to.
Absolutely. I participated in what I called Drama Hamad. Yeah, Drama Hamad.
Really?
Yeah, certainly. I included
Okay.
a picture, an illustration of Muhammad on the post for this surah.
Nice. So yeah, that's what brought me here. So I want to do that for the last episode.
Outstanding. Yes. You're welcome to.
That's a good way to die here. A fast way.
All right. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and we will see you again in a couple weeks' time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.